Good morning, Ramblers, and welcome to another weekend and indeed another thrilling instalment of Reese Rambles, my weekly update on all the stuff that's been going on in the worlds of retro computing and retro gaming and all the rest of it. And I need to address the elephant in the room for those of you who are watching it on YouTube, because you'll probably think that this setup is quite weird. And I agree with you. So, for the benefit of those who aren't watching, we have a bit of a wide-angle shot of me here in the studio. I mean, I guess it's nice that you can see all the stuff that I'm working on the desk and everything, and kind of all the stuff going on in the background. And there's a big fluffy microphone right in front of my face, and there's a very good reason for that. And the reason for that is because I've been infected with some kind of hideous face fungus this week. Oh, I need to hide behind the mic. And you don't need to see that. It's horrible. You'll just be staring at it and you'll make me feel uncomfortable, and it will definitely make you feel uncomfortable. I mean, it's probably going to be another couple of days until it's fully cleared up. Don't know what's going on. I used to get cold sores and stuff all the time when I was a kid, but haven't had one for years now. So, and it's been a bit of a pain as well, because last week I talked about this Atari 7800 video and how I'd had some technical issues and stuff like that. I've resolved those issues. I've recorded loads of B-roll footage. I've done a proper return to form documentary style video where I've recorded loads of voiceover bits and edited bits and talked about the history of the console and Atari and all that stuff. And I can't actually do the final few bits that I need to do to actually finish that video off. The intro, the outro, the little links and things that I like to put in there to camera, because I think appearing on camera is quite an important thing to me, quite an important part of my channel. So, yeah, obviously that couldn't go out. I've had a major breakthrough on another project. That's all ready to record. That's literally just to sit down and record the whole thing from beginning to end type video. Again, that's another one that I'm really keen to get out there. And I also can't do that because I'm going to have to appear on camera. And I guess I'm very vain. I don't know. I mean, once you put these things out there, they're there forever. So, for the sake of waiting a few days, I'd rather just do that and it'd be perfect. But I am well aware, as far as the Ramble's concerned, that This Week in Retro is not going out this week. It's Duncan's week off. Duncan, the editor, of course, he does an amazing job. So big shout out to Duncan, and very well earned on his part. But yeah, I guess that leaves me in charge of the retro news and stuff. So the show must go on. And there we go. So with that in mind, let's just jump into our first story. I've rambled on far too much with this preamble. And this is to do with the Taki Udon DE-10 Nano clone, the Mr. clone that I've been talking about over the course of the past few months. Wonderful project, fantastic thing. And I'm very, very keen to get my hands on one of these myself so I can put it in my arcade machine. And we've talked about, kind of the pricing and the development and the branding and all of that stuff. And this is it. It goes live this weekend. There's going to be a brand new website where you can order these. I don't know what the URL is. It's not been announced yet. I guess I'll see if I can spot it over the weekend and post it in the comments or in the description. But if you check out Taki Udon's Twitter account or, I don't know, Google it maybe. But one thing that he has announced, which I was really impressed with, is that these are actually going to be going out over the course of a 12-hour time span on this website. So it's not just they drop at, I don't know, 11 a.m. Central Time in America or whatever, when part of the world is still in bed and it will miss out on them. So that's really cool. That's really kind of considerate of Taki. So thank you ever so much for doing it this way. And of course, that also means that we have the final pricing, the final branding, and all the rest of it. So very exciting time. I think the initial batch is like 2,000 of them, and then the next batch is going to be very soon after that, stuff that we have covered previously on the Rambles. So, yes, he has gone with the name Mr. Pie, despite all of the people's complaints on Twitter at the time, and despite there being a poll about alternative names and things. So, must admit, I'm not entirely keen on that name. I think it will actually be a bit detrimental to the project. If you're trying to upsell people, telling them that the Mr. is far superior to any kind of Raspberry Pi type situation, and then they see a Mr. Pi listed for sale, it might put them off. They might think that it's something Raspberry Pi based when it's not, and perhaps does the thing a little bit of a disservice. But hey, that's not up to me. Of course, those of us in the community who know what these things are going to buy them anyway. So none of my business, I guess. And it's just fantastic that this thing looks so good and works so good and just exists and has some of the nice little tweaks and improvements that it has. So anyway, I'm waffling now. So this, of course, the DE-10 Nano is at the heart of any Mr. setup. It's that FPGA system that runs all of those lovely cores, all of those old computers and consoles and things. And yeah, the pricing has been announced. So we've got the base kit, which is just the DE-10 Nano on its own, and a cooling hat thing with a fan built in. And that is at $95.87, which is pretty incredible when you consider that the original DE-10's like $200-$300. yeah, $200, isn't it? We've got the RAM bundle, which is basically all of the above, plus the RAM that he made, the 128 meg RAM expansion that you need to run some of those cores, and that's $111.86. And again, I mean, the cost of the RAM, I mean, look at that, $95 versus $111. It's incredibly cheap for what it is. And then we move on to the next one, which is the Mega Pack, and that includes some other stuff. There's a USB hub thing. There's some more additional GPIO type stuff. I guess it's video input and output. I don't think that's yeah, he hasn't actually announced what's in those packs specifically. Of course, I guess the details will be on the website. And that one also comes with a little Wi-Fi and Bluetooth dongle as well, which is cool to see. In fact, it looks like it has a different version. I've only just spotted this, a different version of the fan board. So the basic kits, it just has the fan, and then with the Mega Pack, it's fully populated, and that has a fan. It has video inputs and outputs and things on it. Looks like it's got a VGA connector on it, audio connector, and all of your buttons and things for your reset, your on-screen display, and everything else. So $156.86, and that's like that's for a complete Mister setup. Bearing in mind that's cheaper than just the DE-10 on its own from Jurassic. So what an amazing deal. I'm not here to shill it. I'm not being paid to sell that. I'm genuinely just really enthusiastic about this project. I just think it's going to be so cool. So hoping to be able to pick one of those up myself. And yeah, if we scroll a little bit down, a little bit further down through Taki's Twitter feed and see what else he has been posting. So yeah, product photos are finished, exciting stuff. He also designed a case, a 3D printed case that is compatible with the new stack that he's selling, that Mega Pack with all of the extra bits. Looks quite nice, you know, it's various kind of flat panels that kind of slot together. It's utilitarian, I guess you could call it, but you know what? I like it. I think it's cool. I might have one of those as well, actually. I do know a couple of people who have 3D printers who might be able to help me out with that. So that is nice. And then yeah, he's also been working on this handheld project. So if we just have a little scroll down through here. There it is. That's the post I was looking for. So the handheld has a name now. It's called the Super R2, and it has an AMOLED screen built in. And he has found a true 4x3 AMOLED screen that's going to be part of that handheld system. So, of course, that's a little bit further behind. His focus has been on the DE-10 clone itself. But yeah, it'd be really cool to see the details of that handheld when that comes out. So that's the latest on the Taki Udon Mr. DE-10 Nano clone project. I'll probably try and jump on one of those over the weekend, see if I can get my hands on one, and then maybe do a bit of a review on the channel, or maybe just use it for myself. I don't know. Good stuff. Now, if there's one thing that I enjoy more than a classic 90s PC game, it's a modern remaster of a classic 90s PC game. Provided they do a decent job, of course. I've talked at length about all the amazing work that Night Dive have done on stuff like Dark Forces and Doom 64, the Quake games, all that kind of stuff. Of course, there was the recent Doom and Doom 2 remaster as well. And, you know, I think it's so great to be able to pick up these old games and be able to enjoy them on modern hardware, and also to kind of introduce them to a whole new generation of people as well. So another bit of remaster news that came up on my radar this week, and it actually amused me quite a lot, because this is a game that I have fond, not necessarily memories of. I don't think I really played it back in the day, but it is a game that I'm quite fond of, and because I have some history with it on my channel. Now, if you remember, 3 years ago, I made a video all about the S3 Verge, which was a bit of a short-lived and sadly not fondly remembered 3D graphics card from the mid-90s. And I covered the very limited selection of games that actually took advantage of that card, because, well, there weren't all that many of them at all. And there's a whole story behind this. This was 3 years ago. I bought a PC, happened to have that card in. I'd made a video. It turned out that I was a bit of an idiot and hadn't set the games up properly, so they weren't properly accelerated. Lots of people complained, so I took it down, and then like 6 months later, I released this epic production where I just covered every single game. Has it aged well? I'm not sure. It's quite old school. I'll link to it in the usual places so you can go and check that out. But anyway, this story isn't about the S3 Verge, and it's certainly not about me, but it is about one of the games that I covered in that video. And that game is Croc, a Legend of the Gobbos. And I guess this is it like the PC's answer to Mario 64, that kind of thing? I don't know. 1997 platformer by Argonaut Games, and it's actually not a bad game at all. If you play it with a gamepad and you play a proper 3D accelerated version. Not necessarily the Verge version, I would say, but of course it does support all of the sort of contemporary 3D accelerators of the time. And, quite a fun little platforming game, quite cute. Of course, the titular character, Croc, Croc, going on his adventures through lava and woodlands and all the rest of it, meeting various woodland critters and, platforming in the 3D way that was popular briefly in the kind of mid to late 90s. And indeed, it is being remastered, but it's not being remastered by one of our usual suspects, Night Dive or whoever. It's actually being remastered by a relaunched, reimagined Argonaut Games, the people that originally published it and went bust quite a while ago and are now being brought back and are remaking their old games, even though they're not even under the same ownership as they were at the time. So, yeah, wrap your brain around that one. A remastered game from a remastered company, a remastered game developer, I guess. Anyway, so this news comes via Eurogamer.net from Matt Wales. Thank you, Matt. Not quite sure why I'm thanking the author of the article, but there you go. Beloved 1997 3D platformer Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, is being remastered for PC and consoles, and it's coming from a newly revived version of original developer Argonaut Games. Argonaut was founded by Jez San in 1982 and would go on to release the likes of Starglider and Birds of Prey before teaming up with Nintendo to create 1993's classic on-rails space shooter, Star Fox. Indeed. A second Nintendo partnership resulted in 94's Stunt Race FX, also an excellent game, and the studio would go on to release games for another decade before it closed amid financial troubles in 2004. That's 20 years ago, with many of the team ending up at Batman Arkham developer Rocksteady Studios. 20 years later, Argonaut Games is being resurrected as a boutique publisher by new co-CEOs Gary Scheinwald and Mike Arkin. And while San doesn't appear to be involved with the revival, he does pop up in the announcement press release to say, Argonaut was always about pushing the boundaries of what's possible in gaming, and I'm excited to see how the relaunched Argonaut Games builds on that legacy, starting with Croc, Legend of the Gobbos remaster. There is a trailer here as well, which shows off some of the remastered graphics and things. Of course, these remasters, they also kind of tweak them for modern controls and things, but this actually worked with game controllers and stuff back in the day, so probably not too much work to do on that side of it, but it's a fun little game. Just have a look at some actual footage. It's been polished. It's not been completely polished to within an inch of its life to the point that it's not recognisable. It still has that kind of 90s charm and stuff. And this is the kind of remaster that I like, because I like these games to look the way that we remembered them to look rather than the way that they actually looked necessarily, because a lot of them didn't really age very well, I think it's fair to say. All right, perfectly fine for the likes of us middle-aged gamers, but stick that in front of a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha, they're not going to like those graphics, are they? So anyway, so it just goes on, talks a bit about the story behind the game. Of course, it was originally released for the PlayStation in 97. I always forget the PlayStation. I always think of it as a PC game. And the titular crocodile on a platforming adventure through the polygonal Gobbo Valley in a bid to free their friends from the evil magician Baron Dante. There we go. Let's get my words out. And the newly announced 2024 remaster promises enhanced high-definition graphics, updated modern control mechanics, and a nostalgic, fun, and authentic gameplay experience. That's what we like. And releasing on Steam includes some achievements, and that'll be a day one purchase for me. It will also feature the Crocipedia, an extensive and meticulously curated digital museum, incorporating the likes of game design documents, concept art, animation tests, and team member interviews. It doesn't have a release date yet, but it will be launching for PC and all the current consoles later this year. After that, Argonaut says it has a planned slate of classic Argonaut IP and exciting original titles for both current and retro gaming platforms. So that all looks rather cool. I quite like the look of that. Hopefully we'll see some Argonaut IPs making a return, perhaps not the ones that they worked on with Nintendo, because, of course, Nintendo control their IP with an iron fist. But, always cool to see a retro name coming back and officially endorsed by the original, the original owners of the company as well, which is great to see. So, looking forward to that later on this year, and I will surely update you on my thoughts when it comes out. So while we are on the subject of classic games and remasters and remasters of classic games, particularly games from the 90s. There's some more news. There's another big remaster that is coming our way in the near future. Not a new announcement this week. I think this was announced during one of those Nintendo Direct things a while back, but there has been some more news on it this week, and something that's quite cool. Something I'm definitely going to be checking out as well. And this is Worms. Of course, everybody loves Worms. Everyone played it back in the 90s. Absolutely classic, iconic game. And of course, we got a re-released version of Worms WMD, I think it was. That was, 5 or 6 years ago. I own it on Steam. I've played it a fair bit. I've played it multiplayer a fair bit with people. Yeah, it's Worms. What more is there to say? Well, this is being handled by Digital Eclipse, so you know it's in safe hands because they certainly know their onions when it comes to this kind of thing. And yeah, one of the most beloved multiplayer games of all time, now on modern consoles for its 25th. So just having a look at their little webpage on this. Of course, this will be linked in the usual places, along with all the other stuff that I cover in my ramble, as always. Worms Armageddon Anniversary Edition brings the classic 1999 game to modern consoles. And yeah, 1999. So explains why they're doing the 25th Anniversary Edition. Not hard to do the maths on that, even for me, someone who is famously horrifically terrible at maths. It brings the classic 1999 game to modern consoles for the first time. Digital Eclipse and Team 17 have poured a lot of love into the enhancements, with many quality of life improvements and a completely redesigned UI across all platform versions. Optimized controller support for all consoles, achievements and trophies, new display features such as modern aspect ratios, custom screen filters, enhanced HD and graphics options, fully playable Game Boy Color version of Worms Armageddon, which was kind of the big announcement that I wanted to talk about this week, an interactive museum that charts the history of the entire series, featuring never-before-seen interviews with developers of the original and current games. There's a new save system, and Worms Armageddon will feature online support, allowing up to 6 players to team up or compete. Online is cross-generation, so PS4 and PS5 owners will be able to play against each other, as well as Xbox One and Xbox Series owners, which is always good to see. What I don't see here is any kind of mention of whether this is going to be released on PC, and I couldn't really find any info on it, just having a bit of a dig this morning. Perhaps I'm just being completely oblivious. Of course they're going to release it on PC. It's Digital Eclipse. They wouldn't let me down like that. So, of course, there's going to be this museum feature, which is becoming very trendy with these modern games. Of course, I think remasters and re-releases have always had a bit of a token, half-arsed type approach to this in the past, just including some random screenshots and stuff. But I think since like the Atari 50th collection and that kind of stuff, the quality, the kind of the bar for this has really been raised. And of course, we've had like the recent Doom remasters and things that have had all of the old development sketches and prototypes and things that you can look at and even have a bit of a play with in some cases. It's all great to see because documenting the history of these games and letting people get hands-on with them and learn all about where they came from as well, which I think is very important. I mean, it's kind of a big part of what I do here. So yeah, great to see. And the Game Boy Color version, I really like the Game Boy Color version of Worms. I liked it back in the day. I think it still holds up quite well today. I mean, the Game Boy Color is a very underrated console. Of course, I built that FPGA-based version here on the second channel a while back. So that would be cool to actually have a play with on the big screen. It's amazing, really, how some of these Game Boy games do translate to the big screen as well. And yeah, just cool to see. So there's another game that I'm looking forward to. There is a bit of a trailer here on the website. It's 2.5 minutes long, so we're not going to sit here and watch the whole thing now. But it's as you would expect. You've got these nice kind of modern, remastered, upscaled looking graphics. But apart from that, it's Worms. It's the game that you know and love. We've got the old concrete donkey there, I see, just making an appearance. Very good to see. I think that first appeared in, was it Worms 2 back in the day? And yeah, very much looking forward to having a play with this. And it'll be nice to have a dig through that museum section as well and kind of see some of those, some of the development notes and things like that. A bit more of the story behind the game. So yeah, that's the new Worms Armageddon from Digital Eclipse. And that is coming out September the 26th. I believe. And so that brings us to our regular Video of the Week feature. And indeed, I do have my kazoo. I do usually play a little tune on this to introduce this feature. But I think for obvious reasons this week, I'm going to forego the kazoo. I don't want to get my face fungus all over this as well. But yeah, let's dive straight into this video. And I made I made a few videos recently all about a desk PC, which you can see behind me here, and indeed it's behind me in most of my videos and stuff as well. And I still use it all the time. In fact, I actually fired it up yesterday because I needed to use a particular piece of hardware from this kind of, I mean, it's running Windows Millennium Edition, as you may well know, a piece of hardware from that era, and it was just the easiest machine that was kind of to hand to be able to set that up and actually use that. And yeah, genuinely useful machine to have here in the studio. But anyway, desk PCs, computers built into furniture is the theme, and that's the theme of this video as well. So this is from a channel called Curious Computer, and they have 1,000 subscribers. I think he had 900 and something when I first came across this, so nice to see that his channel is growing, and 10,000 views on this video. And the funny thing is that despite the fact that, I mean, obviously this is a relatively new, relatively small channel, and the fact that it's on 10,000 views, so it's not. It's doing well. It's not gone massively viral or anything, but the surprising thing about this is how many people have sent this to me over the past week. Of course, because of my interest in desk-based computers, I guess. And this had also popped up on my recommendations as well. So I guess that's a big sign that it's worthy of our video of the week slot. And I thought this was really fascinating. So this is just a young guy. He's from Switzerland. And yeah, this is like it's a HP mini computer. So I mean, mini computers. I remember reading about these in books when I was a kid, and they were obsolete then. But of course, we had like mainframe computers, and then they kind of made mini computers which fit in a room or in a cupboard-sized thing, or in this case, in a desk. And then, of course, we've got desktop computers and all the rest of it. So this one dates back to 1978, and everything is built into the desk. So you've got the keyboard, you've got the you've got the monitor, the actual terminal and stuff. And I love this. I love the enthusiasm. I love the editing. I love the kind of the raw, kind of unscripted approach to this. I just thought it was a really great video, and of course, a really great restoration of a really interesting piece of hardware. So he strips it down and takes it apart, shows all the various cards and things that kind of make up the actual hardware of the computer. Look at this. That's an 8-inch floppy disk. That's something you don't see every day. It's just a fascinating video. It's 28 minutes long, so I'm liking my longer videos at the minute. Of course, I'm making slightly longer videos on my own channel because loads of people watching on TVs nowadays, which is a whole different story in and of itself. But yeah, just enjoyed this. I like the pace of it. I like the kind of the character and the kind of all the love and the kind of thought that's evidently gone into this ancient piece of hardware. And it's nice to see, I mean, I'm going to sound like a proper boomer here, but nice to see young people discovering this stuff and getting passionate about it and kind of helping with the preservation and documentation effort. So yeah, that's my video of the week. Curious Computer. It's called I Restored This 1978 HP Desk Mini Computer. And like I say, 28 minutes long. Quite a small channel, 1,000 subscribers. So I thought I'd give him a little bit of a shout out because genuinely great and an interesting video. So that was video of the week, but there's also something else that I spotted this week that I thought was quite interesting and that I thought I would share. And no, I don't foresee this becoming a regular feature or anything like that, but I wanted to share this with you. I'm going to link to it down in the usual places, and you can give it a little read when you're on the train or in the office and you've got nothing better to do. This is a long-form article, and it comes to me via timeextension.com, of course, a website that I've spent many an hour on over the years, one that I've talked about in the Rambles many times. No affiliation, no connection, nothing nefarious going on like that. Just a big fan of their work, and it's a website that I look at most days. So this is to do with Grand Theft Auto. Now, you will no doubt be aware that I am a bit of a long-term fan of the Grand Theft Auto series, oddly enough. I know, it's probably quite weird to imagine me, the guy who fixes electronics and stuff, driving around shooting hookers in the face and whatnot. But there you go. That's the kind of stuff that I do in my spare time. And of course, that started with the original game on the PC way back when. And over the years, there have been a lot of different prototypes and different unreleased versions of the various Grand Theft Auto games. And what they've done here, what Jack Yarwood has done here, is collect them all together and talk a little bit about the story behind each one, the story about how it came to be and how it ended up getting cancelled and the rest of it. And it's fascinating, such a fascinating series with such a kind of long and interesting history. So the title of the article is The Grand Theft Auto Games Ports and Expansions We Never Got to Play, from unreleased ports to unrealised spin-offs and abandoned ideas. And it starts off Well, we'll have a look at the intro first, shall we? So, there are a few video game series that have managed to achieve the same level of success than the Grand Theft Auto games. Originally developed by a small team at the Dundee-based studio DMA Design, of course, they also give us Lemmings, the open-world crime series has since gone on to become a billion-dollar enterprise requiring multiple studios across the globe to work against the clock to ensure its latest entry is bigger, better, and more groundbreaking than the one that came before it. Absolute juggernaut of a series, isn't it? An entertainment series. Because of this, we're always fascinated to look back at some of the plans for the series that never quite saw the light of day and imagine the roads not taken on its path to superstardom. From playable cities and modes that were announced but never realised to ports of the game that graced the pages of magazines, only to disappear from the release calendar without any explanation as to what had happened. Recently, we've been busy compiling a list of these projects, amassing everything we could find about these projects, trawling through our old archive of interviews for comments from developers, and conducting additional conversations whenever necessary. The list includes everything from early concepts for projects that ended up releasing to versions of the game that were scrapped and wholly original titles that were killed before they even had the chance to reach the market. So there you go. And of course, I'm not going to read through the whole article for you here. I'm not going to do your homework for you, but it starts off with Race and Chase, which of course was the original version of Grand Theft Auto, if you like, the original concept for it. And it was going to be a city, just a racing game through the city kind of thing. And they built some prototypes and started playing with it and discovered that actually chasing each other and crashing cars and stealing cars and that kind of thing was a lot more fun than the actual racing aspect. And that's how it kind of ended up evolving into what we eventually got, thankfully, because there's plenty of racing games out there, but Grand Theft Auto is kind of its own thing, isn't it? Before Grand Theft Auto was Grand Theft Auto, this comes from the article, it was being developed under the name Race and Chase. Race and Chase was a very different project from the one that ended up releasing in 1997 across PC and PlayStation in the UK, and saw players exploring 3 cities, described as New York, Venice, and Miami in the design doc, across 4 different game types. Now, there aren't many actual roads in Venice, in Italy, so I guess they probably mean Venice in LA. I would have thought so. Kind of fits with the New York and Miami stuff, doesn't it? So yeah, we've got a bit of a screenshot here, screenshot/concept art, which I note has come from Mike Daly, of course, the famous Mr. Lemmings himself. These game types included Cannonball Run, which was an A to B race across the city, Demolition Derby, a free roam mode where the winner is the person to wreck the most enemy cars or survive the longest, and 2 different bank robbery modes, one where you play as a getaway driver and must evade the police, and another where you control the police and must stop the robber's vehicle from escaping. But over time, the team ultimately decided to go in a different direction with the project, choosing to focus more on the criminals than the police. This was then followed by a name change to the iconic title that we're all familiar with today. So fascinating story. I don't think there's a playable version of this that's ever sort of been released or leaked or anything, has there? So that would be quite fun to have a poke around and have a play with, I guess. But yeah, who knows? Probably never going to happen. So of course it goes on to Grand Theft Auto on the Nintendo 64 and the Sega Saturn. GTA 1.5, which was going to be kind of a stopgap. You can read the article, between GTA 1 and 2. GTA 2 on the N64, GTA 2 Berlin. Of course, we got GTA London back in the day, but there was going to be a Berlin spin-off, and unfortunately never happened. We've got GTA 2000, we've got GTA Online Crime World. There's loads of these. I don't need to go through and read the entire list. But yeah, that's a fascinating article. I highly recommend that you go and give it a read if you've got, a spare, I was going to say a spare 5 minutes, but it'll probably take you 20 minutes, half an hour to get through this lot, especially if you're watching all the videos and reading all the documents and stuff. But really well researched, really well put together, and a really interesting retrospective on some unseen behind-the-scenes stuff, some unreleased stuff to do with one of my favourite game series of all time. My next story will probably be old news to some of you. It's certainly something that's been around for quite a while, but it is something I've been doing, something I've been playing with and enjoying this week. And hey, maybe you'll enjoy it too. And hey, also, this is a retro podcast, a retro thing, so we can talk about old stuff, can't we? I mean, that's kind of our whole thing, isn't it? And this is all to do with Bungie's classic first-person shooter, Marathon, or Marathon, I guess, if you're American, but I'm not. So let's stick with Marathon. And of course, this was originally released on the Mac way back in 1994. It was eventually released on a few other platforms, but only much, much later on. So it was kind of a classic Mac first-person shooter. And bear in mind, the other stuff that was around in 94, I mean, it was only a year after Doom. And Marathon was this really kind of sophisticated, first-person shooter that, of course, passed most people by because most people weren't gaming on Macs in 1994. But it's nice that it's become more accessible and whatnot. But before we talk about that, let's just talk about the re-release, because I wasn't aware of this until literally just now when I went to look for some links to show you for this story. Apparently, this has been they're doing a new version of this as a how do they describe this? A new sci-fi PvP extraction shooter. Is that like Fortnite? You know, Fortnite. I think you like get dropped in at the beginning, and then you all kind of fight amongst yourselves, and then. I don't know how Fortnite works. I've never played it, but apparently that's what all the kids are playing nowadays. But become a runner in Bungie's new sci-fi PvP extraction shooter. Compete for survival, riches, and renown in a world of evolving, persistent zones where any run can lead to greatness. Currently in development for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X/S, and PC, with full cross-play and cross-save. But anyway, that's not what this story is about. This story is about the original. And these are now available on Steam for free. So if you have Steam and you use it for your PC gaming, you can play them on there. And these are all built around an open source engine called Aleph One, and it has its own website. And we've got the original Marathon trilogy on there as well, if you want to check those out. Available for various different platforms, Windows, Linux, and Mac. Indeed, you would hope so, wouldn't you? And of course, this was kind of Bungie's big thing before they went on to make Halo, and then I think they got bought out by Microsoft, and then they kind of vanished off the face of the earth. And now they're back, and they're not making Halo anymore. Someone else is making Halo. I lost touch with all of that stuff years ago. But anyway, so we've got Classic Marathon on here on Steam. Great game. We have Marathon 2. And we have Marathon Infinity, which is like a Quake 3 arena shooter type game. I didn't even know that existed, but you can play it and it's all online. And I've been having a play with these this week, like I say, and it's a lot of fun. I do like a quirky first-person shooter. You know, they've all become quite sort of homogenous and quite kind of samey nowadays. But back in the early 90s, when people were first sort of experimenting with this stuff, there were some really interesting ideas and concepts and things. As you probably know, Dark Forces is one of my favourite games. All of that kind of stuff. And they've thankfully this new engine does make some improvements to the UI, so you can actually play it full screen instead of in a silly little window, which is nice. And I found it quite nice. I've been playing it on my living room PC with a controller. Just fire it up, have a bit of a run around, shoot some weird looking aliens, and just quite atmospheric and quite an impressive game for its day. Well worth checking out just to kind of see just to see how impressive it was way back in 1994. So I thought I'd bring people's attention to that. You're probably all already aware that it's a thing and that it's out there, and that if you're not, then consider yourself told, and consider that a personal endorsement as well. But that's all I have for you this week, so thank you ever so much for joining me for this week's Ramble. I hope the setup wasn't too weird for you with me hiding behind my microphone here. I actually thought the workflow would be a bit of a pain with not having my capture device and stuff and having to run backwards and forwards with SD cards and things from my camera, but it's worked out pretty well. I quite like it. And hey, if the video quality is better and it solves the issue with the audio and the video going out of sync that a few people have talked about, maybe it'd be worth doing going forwards in the future. But anyway, normal service shall hopefully resume in the future next week, unless something goes horribly wrong with my face again, and then I'll probably just throw in the towel and just give up and go and live on a remote desert island somewhere on my own. So thanks again. Look out for those 2 new videos that are coming out on my channel. Of course, they'll be going out to my patrons and my other supporters before anyone else, and then they'll be releasing on the main channel, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Maybe I can do 4 videos this month. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what the future might hold. But enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's actually looking like it might be sunny this weekend. I know I promised it last week, and then a load of people complained because it wasn't. I didn't check the weather forecast properly. I'm so sorry. This isn't a weather channel. This is a retro channel. Anyway, that's all I got for you. So thank you, and bye.